Order. Ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Steve Carrienan. Kay Wilson. Tweed Schuman. Stacy Hessel. Randy Newman. Mark Helwig. Thomas Duffy. Marshall Savitsky. Jim Evans. Chuck Van Etten. Jeff Haney. John Regheimer. Ron Kinsley.
Here.
Ron Buckholz. Dale Magnuson. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Let the record indicate you have a quorum. Next item is pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Number 4, certification compliance to open meeting laws.
This meeting was noticed to the media and the public as required by Section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Number 5, the meeting agenda. The agenda is set. Number 6 is public comment. Anybody wish to speak to the board? We ask you stay at 3 minutes and state your name and address. Anybody wish to speak to the board? Anybody online? Good. Number 7, consider approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of March 20th.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Duffy, second by Mr. Buckles to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 8, recognition of our almighty second administrator that Sawyer County has had. No, we're not going to deny it. We're going to let him lead his life and off into the future. But we have a plaque for him with, Liz was nice enough to help me out get a plaque, and we got cake. But I'm gonna ask all the board members to stand up and gather behind us so we can have a picture that way, please.
Tall ones in the back, short ones in. That wasn't meant for you, girl. Good looking guys are in front. You want to move Middlemarsh?
Andy needs to go right here.
How are you gonna do this?
Just like that.
Just like that? Oops, sorry.
Take the plastic off, you guys, it'll reflect. She wants to return it.
Is everybody in the picture?
Yeah, we can get everybody on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Andy, thank you for serving us for the 3 years.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Andy, it's a pleasure working with you.
Pleasure with you.
Andy, let me give you a handshake, buddy. Thank you for all you do.
There's a box, man. Also, there's a cake up here that we have that Liz was nice enough to pick up for us. Okay, we'll go on to number 9, presentation of Forward Analytics. Andy, I'll let you introduce him, please.
Yes, tonight I think we're fortunate to have Dale Knapp with Forward Analytics. So Forward Analytics is a division of the Wisconsin Counties Association. About every quarter you get like a kind of bluish colored report on anything from housing to childcare to the demographics of the state. So tonight Dale's here. I asked him to come up and give a little presentation on kind of Sawyer County's position in the state and maybe look at some of the more particular things. If you're not familiar with Dale, he's been, prior to being with Forward Analytics, was with Wisconsin Taxpayers Alliance, which also produced some very exciting reports on the state. He was the research director there before coming to Forward Analytics, or coming to the WCA to start Forward Analytics in 2018. So thanks, Dale, for coming up. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Andy. And before I start, I gotta say, I feel a little bit nervous that it's me. I gave a presentation similar to this in January in Chippewa County. We organized it in the fall, and when I got there, I found out that Randy was leaving. and Andy approached me in I don't know, January or February to come here, and now he's leaving. So maybe I should stop accepting. I don't know. But I'm very happy for him. So let me just start by just talking about, you know, the Green Book. I hope you like it. I hope you use it. There's a lot of good information in there. We try to add stuff every once in a while. We don't want to make it too big, but we want to find things that are really important. And I would just want to sort of, from the insert that you get in there, I just wanted to start by sort of highlighting, I think, some of the positives and challenges for the county that show up there. And in terms of the good, 5-year population change, that 7th in the state. So, you know, from 2018 to 23, Sawyer County has been growing faster than most any county in the state, a positive for the county. County sales tax per capita, fifth highest in the state, so another positive. On the other side, poverty rate, we're going to have a piece on poverty rate in the magazine coming up, and so then you can decide whether or not this is a really good statistic or not. But based on poverty rate, you have one of the higher in the state. And the other one that I wanted to point out, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, 25 to 64-year-old population, sometimes referred to as the prime working population, 17th highest. So in terms of, or I'm sorry, 17th lowest. So not at the bottom, but a relative to your population, a relatively small prime working age population. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here. Is there a clicker that I can, or, oh, you are, okay. You can go on to the first page. All right, actually go to the second page now. So, so most of what I'm going to talk about is population and economics. I think those are the two things that are really driving the state and where Sawyer County is on those. So let's start with job growth. Everybody is looking to grow jobs, to attract people, and actually 2019 to 23, I picked the year just before COVID to see kind of where counties were in terms of recovery from the COVID recession. So your overall job growth over that period looks low, and it is. And again, that's because of the COVID recession. But, you know, 23rd highest among the counties. So you're in the top third. Statewide, we saw a decline. We still have not fully recovered from the COVID recession, and 42 other counties still have not recovered. Within a couple months, we'll be getting the 2024 numbers. They will be in the Green Book, and we'll kind of see where we've gotten over the last year. And I expect the job growth numbers to be fairly robust. So that's on the employment side. Looking at the other sort of big picture number that we always look at is the unemployment rate. Last year, on average, 3.8% in the county. If you looked at if you had a 3.8% unemployment rate, you know, 20 years ago, you'd have been ecstatic about it because, you know, on average, we were talking generally 4% to 4.5%, you know, average unemployment rates. The late 90s, we got down a little bit lower, but economists always thought of 4% as sort of this equilibrium unemployment rate. With the worker shortages, et cetera, that's come way down. And so 3.8%, again, historically, that's a very good unemployment rate number, but it is above the statewide average of 3%, and you're 60th in the state. Now, I will say that can be a little bit deceiving. The reason is we have this generalization in terms of a sort of stable unemployment rate, but really every county can be a little bit different. You know, some counties might have because of their makeup, their industry, et cetera, might have, you know, a stable unemployment rate on average of 3%, some might have 4%. And if you look at yours over time, historically, you've ranked, you know, in the, roughly in the 60 ranking in the state. So you're right where you historically are. And so, you know, I wouldn't expect really to be able to get much lower again because of the nature of the economy here. So it looks like a bad thing, but I would say it's pretty neutral. So you can go to the next one. So digging into that workforce, there's a couple of numbers that I'd like to look at that I think are really important. One is the labor force participation rate. So in other words, for the labor force, we're talking 16 and older population. That's the quote legal definition of working age. Participation rate is just the number of people, the percentage of people in that age group that are either working or looking for work. So it's essentially the sum of the employed plus the unemployed is the participation rate. Overall, participation rates have been declining. And the reason, one of the big reasons is we have this large baby boom that has begun to age past 65. Big part of the population, you know, a lot of them as they turn 65 or shortly thereafter, some before, are leaving the workforce, retiring. So just naturally because of that population, these labor force participation rates are declining. I guess this would be a concern for me here, because again, you're 64th, you know, among all the counties. So a low participation rate. That means, you know, it's difficult. It's even more difficult for businesses to find workers, and so businesses aren't going to move here. You know, when you have low participation rates. And the other component here is that 65 and older population. As I note, Sawyer County is 10th in terms of that population as a share of your total. You're almost at 30% of your overall population. So naturally it's going to be lower, but it is, you know, significantly lower than the state and lower than most counties in the state. So we're going back now to the prime working population. This gets defined in a variety of ways. Some economists look at 25 to 54 as the prime working population. By the time you're 25, you're generally out of college. If you're going to college, you're in the full-time workforce. After 54, you start to see people beginning to leave the workforce some, or, you know, go part-time. So some define it that, some expand it out to 25 to 64. And I would suggest for rural counties in Wisconsin, the better number is probably 20 to 64, because what we see is that 20 to 24 population, where are they going? They're going, a big chunk of that population is going to universities, you know, in Madison, in La Crosse, in Whitewater, you know, around, not here. So they're going from here to those places. So that population that's here in that age group is generally a part of that prime working population. So I would define that here as 20 to 64. And this, again, this one is where we talked before, where your prime working population is a challenge because it's relatively small compared to everybody else's, but at the same time, it's growing faster than most. So if you look from since 2020, that population is up about 1%. Statewide, it's down 1.1, and you're sixth among all the counties. On the other two measures that I just measured, you're also sixth on those as well. So you know, in terms of it's small relative to other counties, but it's growing faster than other counties. So it's good and it's a challenge at both ends. The other population that I don't have up here, but I thought it would be useful to know. We talked about the older end. You know, you're ranked very high in terms of the 65 and older population. But when we think about the long-term future of counties, of the state, of the nation, you also look at your youth population, and how big is that relative to your total population. You're at 14% of the total population for the 15 and under population. That's 12th lowest. So you're extremely high on, you're very high on the senior population, low on the youth population. And as we're going to see here in a minute, that's going to play out longer term in terms of some challenges. You can go to the next one. Okay. The other measure that I think we just put out, we just started doing a couple years ago, is home affordability. I think this is a critical issue in the state. It's a big issue across the country. The measure here measures the affordability of homes that are up for sale relative to the median income in the county. So it's not affordability for other people moving here necessarily, but for residents that live here. And so if this indicator is at 100, it's just affordable. In other words, the median household has just enough income to afford the mortgage payment. If it's over 100, they have more than enough income. Under 100, it's less than enough. 2024, the most recent numbers that we have, Sawyer County was at 62. In other words, the median household income had 32% less income that was needed to afford the median home that was up for sale. So it can be an issue of income. In this case, it's more an income or an issue of drastically rising prices and stubbornly high interest rates. That's what's been driving this unaffordability. And you know, but even in 2021, and again, this is sort of the nature of the county. The median household was at 20% more income that was needed to afford the home. So in terms of this measure, it was affordable, but 69 other counties by that measure would be more affordable. Now, one of the things that we've done, and I think this is a really interesting tool, we've talked about it on our Monday meetings, that if you join those, we have a new tool up there where you can put in any income that you want into this map, and it will show you for whatever year you pick, for that income, where homes were affordable and where they weren't. So you know, it's not just an affordability based on you, it's based on somebody in Dane County moving here with an $80,000 income. Is it affordable here? Is it affordable in Burnett County or Barron County or wherever? It's a really interesting tool, and I think it's very useful. So let's move on to tomorrow. And this is something we've been talking about a lot, the demographics of the state, demographics of counties. We're going to talk here about this part is based on Department of Administration population projections that they put together every 10 years. The most recent ones go out to 2050. Now, a lot of people say, well, we can't project that far. And there's some truth in that. But I will say one of the easiest things to project for economists, for demographers, is populations, because movement, migration from state to state, from country to country overall has been declining. So people stay in the state. People generally stay in their county just to a great degree. And we know how we age. We know about birth rates. We know about death rates. Back in 2004, when I was at the Taxpayers Alliance, we looked at some of the DOA population projections there and wrote a piece on what Wisconsin was going to look like 2015 and after, so 10 years out. And we were looking out actually to 2030. And we talked about in the state after 2015, the workforce leveling off, worker shortages, unemployment under 3%, which was unheard of back then. And we got some things a little bit wrong, but generally we got the trends. So, you know, I wouldn't dismiss these projections. They're not going to be completely accurate, but they're going to give you a really, really good sense of what the trend's going to be. And what I would also say is, don't let it depress you. Some of these numbers are depressing and hard to take in. But I would say it gives you an idea of where you're headed if you don't do something. I guess that's the way I think about it. And so if you don't like the numbers, figure out what you can do to make some changes and to change those numbers. When we did the piece in 2004, we talked to legislators, we talked to you know, people that decision makers, that this was coming, and nobody listened to us. And now we're faced with these worker shortages. Other states are creating incentives to bring people into their states because other states are having the same issue. Some, you know, so we had people that were proactive. We were not proactive, and now sort of the situation for the state and for counties has gotten worse. So let's go to the first one. So this is just total population, and I'm only looking to 2040. The reason is when you get out to 2050, so much more can change. You know, you're talking 30 years out really from the projection. So we're just going to go to 2040. This number, this trend here sort of masks a lot of what's going to be going on underneath. So generally, compared to a lot of counties, population is relatively going to be projected to be relatively stable. Slight growth over this decade. We talked about the strong growth from 2018 to 23. That's going to kind of level off and it should level off and kind of stabilize a little bit. And then, you know, a small decline, very small decline over the ensuing 10 years. So DOA is expecting essentially the county to stay relatively stable in overall population. Go to the next one. Here's the big challenge, and this is the challenge for the state: prime working age population. The state is expected to lose about 200,000 in their prime working population in this decade, and continue to lose over the next decade. And that's in the face of Dane County just absolutely exploding. One of the things we're expecting is continuing significant growth there. Most other places we're looking at stagnation or decline. In Sawyer County, you're looking at a possible 13% decline in that working age population, that prime working age population in this decade, and then another 1.5% over the next decade. That has implications for businesses, small businesses especially. You know, it has for the tourism economy here in the county. It has big implications, and so that I think that is the state's biggest challenge. As it's a component of the state's biggest challenge as we're going forward. This one you can ignore because as I was looking through this before, I've done these in multiple places. This is from Milwaukee County, so you can. This is that last one. This is going to be in terms of more narrow focus the biggest challenge that the state is going to face, that has faced in a long time, and that's the explosion of the 75 and older population. The population that a portion of them will need senior services, whether it's nursing home care, in-home care, some sort of assistance. We're looking at in Sawyer County a 48% increase in that population in this decade, and another 30% increase on top of that over the next decade. When you combine this with that prime working age population, that's a big challenge. When one is going straight up, one is going down, that becomes a big challenge. And making that challenge even more difficult is, we looked at state numbers. One of the things that's going on in the state with this worker shortage is wages are being pushed up from the bottom. So we're seeing, we looked at a 4-year period, wages in the bottom 10% of pay were up 30%. In the top, they were up about 15, and it sort of went like that. So what that means is wages for childcare workers, there's pressure on that. Wages for CNAs, wages for home health aides, those kinds of workers in that sphere are being pushed up. Why? Because they can go to work at other places that are also looking for workers for a lot more, and that generally pushes up the wages. So we're going to probably see a shortage of workers in that home health senior care sector with an exploding population. It's going to be a major challenge. Go to the next. And we talked earlier about the youth population. Not only is it a small share of your overall population, it's expected to decline. And that's part of that is, or a big chunk of that is, birth rates have been declining since 2007 without any indication that they're going to stop declining. Since 2007, they've declined in every year but 2. One of those years was just a small increase. And the number of births in this state in 2023 was the lowest since 1942. You think about the populations then and now, that's alarming. And again, there's no indication that we're seeing that those are going to level off or begin to increase. And so you're not the only one that is seeing this, but that has impacts for your schools. Your schools are funded based on enrollment. When you start having significant declining enrollment, you begin to have financial problems. And there's probably some of that already going on up here. We can go to the last one. And so these, again, are some of the impacts of all of this that's going on, that's 75 plus. Do we have the infrastructure? Will we have the labor force to deal with that? For most counties, that answer is probably not. And so the question is, how are we going to serve that population? The decline in the 25 to 64-year-old population is going to continue to put pressure on wages. Good for the worker. I mean, there's no doubt that pressure is good for the worker, but it's a challenge for businesses. Some businesses, it's a bigger challenge than others, but it is a challenge. So all of these demographic changes that are going on, you look at where you are now, you've got some strengths, you've got some challenges. The next 15 years or so, not only you, but other counties are going to be facing significant challenge. The only way out of it, and at this point it's too late to get completely out of it, but the only way that Wisconsin and that individual counties are going to be able to meet some of these challenges is to figure out how to bring people into the county or into the state. And as I mentioned, there are counties, there are cities, there are states that are providing incentives to bring people in. Some have been very successful. And hopefully, we will see the legislature finally realize that we need to do something and think seriously about taking a bit of the surplus that we have and create something to begin to move in that direction. Because if we don't, Wisconsin is going to, again, continue to stumble along in many ways. So that's all I have. And if you have questions, if you have interest in deeper data on some of this stuff, please let me know, or information on anything like that. We can dig it up for you. We're more than happy to. So I thank you for the invite. Oh, sure.
Mr. Rick,
Yeah, are there, you sort of alluded to it, but are there specifically any states, possibly counties within our state, but I would doubt that, any states that we could look to as a model? Because much of what you're describing to me, what I would assume is a challenge across the country, lack of a better way to say it, with large rural areas.
Mm-hmm.
So are there states that we can use as a model, or communities we can use as a model that maybe have been facing the same issues and are maybe digging their way out?
Yeah. So, well, the model has really the model that's worked has simply been incentives for moving there, dollar incentives, and there's those vary all over the place. Sometimes it's a cash incentive, and you have to be there a certain number of years, a minimum. Sometimes it's down payment help. Sometimes it's other help with buying or finding a home. There is a relatively new, very new group out there, and I'm blanking on their name now, but it's they were in on the ground floor of Emily's List? What's the Angie's List? Yes, they were in on that. Yeah. So what they've done is they're putting together a database of communities that are creating incentives so that people can go online and say, okay, I'm looking to move to somewhere, and whatever, and look at what the incentives are, and then there's a process they go through. So helping communities, cities, villages, towns, counties to bring those people in. And it's sort of at the very beginning. It seems like it's been successful so far, but I think there will, once we see that take off, we'll see more like that. But it's got to start at the municipal level or the county level, really, to do that.
Question, because some of this seems like we're held hostage by the state, whether it be a zero income tax on state income tax, which we have nothing to do with. Well, what could we, Andy, could you rattle off 3 things just hypothetically we could do that would attract, conceivably, I'm not saying we do this, but.
Well, I mean, you could do things, and I think this is what Dale's talking about. Sometimes there's partnerships with the school districts, like offering up land. Like here's a lot if you build on it, because eventually you get that money back in property taxes. Sometimes it's cash incentives. Same theory though, that you're going to get the money back in future property taxes and sales tax by having more people here. So I mean, that's 2 at least.
Okay. 2 out of 3.
And depending, I think this can be, if the state would like think hard about doing something, they could put up a big chunk of money and then partner with counties or partner with munis. So, they would fund a big portion of it. You would have a smaller portion. I think there would be, if you have certain big businesses that would be interested in some sort of collaboration, just like, I mean, the daycare problem is only going to be solved with a public-private sort of collaboration. And I think this is kind of that same thing. Businesses need the workers. So, maybe it's collaboration on that, in that sense.
I'll give you the third one, and I don't know if Dale knows about this one, but you've heard of TIF districts for property. There are things out there called human TIFs, which would impact like income tax. So if you have a new person move into the state, you provide some incentive that their income tax that they pay to the state would kind of roll back around.
The county would.
It would come through the state, come back to whatever investment was made to draw them in.
Well, we just incentivize living here for a long time. So you get you get recruitment points if you recruit people to move here. I think less government's better, but.
I'd like to ask you a question, Dale, and I didn't prep you for this, so I apologize. But to draw this back to like county budgeting, probably a year ago, I don't know, ish, you guys did a report on revaluations and property tax and how that affects counties. So Sawyer County traditionally shows up in one of the faster appreciating counties in the equalized value reports that come every year, which one would think is a good thing. But from a county budgeting standpoint, it's kind of a double-edged sword in that most of our appreciating value, like we're a, $6 billion county? It goes up, but it's going up through economic value.
Yep.
Not necessarily new construction, because like you've pointed out, the market just keeps increasing, which then that means our new construction dollar needs to keep up with the same rate of pace in order to have any net new construction. So we're getting more demands on an aging population for services. We can't generate any additional money really through net new construction. It's usually less than a percent. So do you want to, I don't have a question, but that's my statement. Can you riff off that for a little bit?
And this is where, so I've written about, we wrote about that. I've written about, for example, I did a piece on schools a year ago. Essentially, we're funding a lot of school districts with referenda now. That's a big chunk of how they fund their schools, which is unsustainable. And I at the end of it, I wrote that the whole system of funding schools, it's been in place since the mid-90s with little tweaks here and there. But it needs to be looked at and overhauled. And you can still keep some sort of property tax limits in it or whatever. We've got to find a better way to fund schools. And I would argue that that's the same thing with munis and counties in terms of levy limits, because as you said, if your property value just by appreciation is growing 10% and you have a 2% overall growth in new construction, in terms of a percentage, that percentage just keeps going down. It's not, it becomes smaller and smaller, and so it's harder to keep up. And so, when they put those levy limits in, they were looking at 2%, 3%, 4%, increases, and now we're happy if we get 1.5% or so, which is again unsustainable. So I don't know what the answer is. I would say the answer is to revamp it. There is zero interest in the legislature to do that, just like there's zero interest in the legislature to do anything about school finance. School finance is partly because they don't understand it. It's so complicated now that there's very few people that understand it. So. Okay, well, thank you very much.
If I could just add, a little background. There's obviously, rhyme and reason to why Dale's here tonight. The intent was that this is part of your education as you go into the strategic planning process, which we're going to push off a little bit. But, if you look at how this ties to what you're faced with the county operation and budgeting, senior services, there's a balloon of seniors coming, and how are you going to provide those services? Economic development, housing. We lose employees here because they can't find adequate housing within the market. versus what we're paying them for a wage. And we're not the only employer faced with that. Zoning, so how are you gonna make sure your zoning ordinances are welcoming to new housing development, especially, I mean, if you're following zoning, it's multi-dwelling development, it's camping cabins, tiny homes. The market's changing for what's affordable, so how is the zoning ordinance need to keep up with that? So this data filters into kind of the decisions that a county faces to put together its priorities and its budget. So that's one of the pieces of information now you have to think about as you get into strategic planning and budgeting going down the road.
Thank you for pointing that out. Anybody else have any questions? We'll move on to number 10, zoning committee, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The zoning committee will hold its monthly public hearing on Friday, April 25th at 8:30 in the morning. This is anticipated to be a longer meeting, which will include 2 megawatt solar facility requests. At the last month's meeting, the committee heard 11 conditional use permits, which 1 was denied and the rest were approved. There was 1 rezone application that was approved, which will be heard next. The multi-dwelling development ad hoc committee has conducted the 5th meeting and is anticipating 1 or 2 additional meetings. The main element is to figure out the condo rentals as it relates to the resort use and unintended consequences. The ad hoc's work will then be presented to the zoning committee as part of the ordinance amendment process. And there are several other ordinance amendments that are anticipated, including the potential change to the camping cabins within licensed campground within the next several months. And if there's no questions, I will turn it over to Jay, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Before we get into the rezones, I'd like to piggyback off Andy's comments, and he is correct. I mean, zoning has a huge impact with the presentation you just heard. If you don't have a sustainable workforce through either commercial or an industrial type of use, you're not going to have those people wanting to stay here. Those people that are moving here are finding challenges for affordable housing, where those options could be used through zoning for smaller dimensional requirements, where someone could buy a lot and a smaller house and be able to live and work here. So that's my 2 cents on that. Would take quite a bit of changes throughout the zoning process, and I would not be the person pushing that forward because it wouldn't move anywhere, put it that way. As far as the zone district map amendment, first one we have is rezone 25-004. This is Matthew Corman and Stephen Ann Corman. They're requesting rezone 76.291 acres from Forestry 1 to Agricultural 1. The reason for this rezone is to expand an existing cattle operation. The property has already been logged and the area is to be used for pasture land. The zoning committee recommended approval at last month's meeting of a vote to 5-0, and the town of Meteor approved the rezone of 3-0. There were 11 additional notification letters sent out to adjacent property owners within 300 feet, and none of those were returned with additional comments.
Mr. Buckles.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the rezone number 25-004.
Mr. Haney.
I'll second that.
There's a motion by Mr. Buckles, second by Mr. Haney to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And next item is letter D. This is a zone district map amendment in the town of Spider Lake. Those county board supervisors that are not aware of this, Sawyer County zoning does not have zoning authority in the town of Spider Lake. They control their own zoning jurisdiction. Therefore, zone district change requests don't necessarily run through the zoning department here at the county, nor does it run through the zoning committee. They hear and hold their own cases at a town level and still requires the county board of supervisors to ratify that zone district change. So this again, had very little to do with this, nor did zoning committee, but ultimately the town is requesting to rezone 17.08 acres owned by Eric and Cheryl Wilson from Forestry 1 to, it's actually split zone, Forestry 1 and Residential Recreational 2 to Residential Recreational 1. Again, the town of Spider Lake has approved the request and recommends ratification of the zone district map to the County Board of Supervisors. The additional information of the location and the site layout is included as part of the packet for information.
What does the board believe they should do?
Is that any relation to you? No, okay.
We still either have to approve or deny it. The same steps have to be taken forward.
I mean, I have looked at the maps. This seems like a pretty benign request. There is existing residential recreational 2 zone district in the immediate area. And I guess I would say a little bit of conversation with the town of Spider Lake. They were more more inclined to look at an RR1 zone district, and that RR2 would have the potentials for campgrounds or resorts within their ordinance. So the applicant, was again wanting to really rezone this forestry zone district to a residential zone district. And again, the town did approve that request.
Thank you, Mr. Righeimer.
So I'd make a motion before we discuss, correct?
Yes, the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, but then I have a question.
Okay. Second by Mr. Evans. Motion by Mr. Righeimer, second by Mr. Evans. Go ahead, Mr. Righeimer.
Yeah, I'm rolling around in my head a little bit, still can't figure it out. I used to be in zoning, never had this come up. And then for the last year, haven't come up. What makes this unique that Spider Lake, which has its own zoning authority, that we're even involved in this at all?
So twofold. One, they have their own separate jurisdiction of zoning in that, and again, this is per their town's attorney, that they had a zoning ordinance in effect prior to Sawyer County adopting a zoning ordinance. So they're working under the anticipation that they're able to, again, control their own zoning jurisdiction because, again, they had it in effect before us. That was somewhat backed up by case law. So that's where they get their own zoning aspect. However, in order to change the official Sawyer County zone district maps, it still requires the County Board of Supervisors to ratify that change. The only process that it doesn't go through is Sawyer County Zoning Committee or through the Sawyer County Zoning and Conservation Department. No, I've seen maybe 4 in 15 years. So that's why you never saw one.
So, Mr. Wellesley, the reason it's here is so that our Sawyer County maps can get changed.
Correct.
I have one question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Jay, I'm looking at this, we did a resolution to amend the Sawyer County official zoning map on the Corman. What's the difference here?
Same thing. There's a resolution to amend the Sawyer County official zoning map for the town of Spider Lake.
Okay, that's
rezone
what I kind of
request.
figured, so.
We have a motion by Mr. Righeimer, second by Mr. Evans. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
Number 11, Public Works Committee. Mr. Helwig.
Good evening. Maintenance Department report. Mr. Hagberg provided a written report. The items that were started or completed in March were a new roof on the Sheriff's Department, HVAC work, Justice Point offices, Child Support offices, the DA window, and Clerk's office wall. The Sawyer County Airport report. A report was provided by Mr. Leslie, but the state BOA officials at an aviation conference who approved the C2 runway classification for forwarding to the FAA for completing the airport layout plan before the master plan can be completed next year. The C2 classification is based on the FAA statistical aircraft use and is not discretionary. The Sawyer County Airport has continued to see growth compared to other airports trending downward across the state. The airport runway project is scheduled to start May 5th and is expected to be completed in June. There will be a ribbon cutting ceremony. Mr. Kinsley's pointed out that the master plan is a plan, not a project. The airport is not currently in the process of expanding. Highway Department, Commissioner Pinal updated the committee on current road projects, patching, brushing, crack sealing. Culvert work is ongoing. A large portion of the highway budget expense was salt. Frost tubes were clear today. The roads need to dry out for 1 to 2 weeks before the road bans be lifted. The average number of days for road bans is 47. The county is on track for that this year. The County East Spring Lake project is on hold pending DNR approval and may take place in 2027. Asphalt bids were received from Monarch Paving Company. The committee reviewed the bid and made a motion to award the bid and approved type LT regressed hot mix asphalt at $61.31 per ton. Loaded into trucks in the winter for the county WLRIP project. Asphalt bids were received from our company. The committee reviewed the bid and made a motion to award the bid. That's it. Thank you.
Just an update, I talked to the commissioner just a couple days ago, and the road bans are coming off the county roads on April 21st. Thank you.
Monday?
Number 12, Public Safety Committee report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Safety met on April 3rd. Clerk of Court had a report. There was 2 positions open in that department. Sheriff's Department, a written report was reviewed by Lieutenant Rapinski. Calls have increased. Truancy citations are now being issued. A jail report, Lieutenant Waller said currently 47 inmates with a 71% unemployment rate. The data breakdowns were provided showing cases by arresting departments. Code enforcement, revenues have increased at the dog pound. Calls for large dogs have continue high. Emergency management, Director Rapinski gave a report on the governor's conference. And she presented another training on emergency management for elected town officials. Other upcoming includes weather training and the LEPC meeting. County dispatchers were recognized at a National Public Safety Communication. And the Public Safety Radio Network, Mr. Pelletier of GenCom presented an updated design plans price for the radio project, which would include additional towers in Meadowbrook, Edgewater, Draper, and the Flambeau Department of Corrections Tower to achieve maximum coverage on portable radios and pagers. The total proposed cost would be $2.6 million, with the Western County portion be completed in 2025 and the eastern portion potentially in the summer of 2026. The Draper Tower requires cooperation with the town board and the DNR. Emergency services, Mr. Fremmel presented an ambulance runs report and discussed response time and proposal for future sites located within towns. Criminal Justice Coordinating Update Council, the LCOSC CJCC MOU has expired and needs to be renewed. And a review of the opioid funds. The opioid funds timeline was reviewed. The committee discussed juvenile justice prevention efforts, and Sheriff Morotek said that a secured border should help with the influx of drugs into the community. That ends my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have letter B, review opioid fund approval of 2025 budget. Mr. Alvarado.
Yes, I'll introduce this, and then Julia Lyons is here from Human Services. She can answer questions. In your packet is a summary of the opioid settlement funds to date. If you recall, in August or summer of '23, the county board approved $127,650 in expenses for use of the opioid funds. There was a list of items that they were going to be working on. They did a really good job actually of using other funds and grant funding to replace some of that. So they actually only spent $47,076 of the opioid funds. In the presentation, you can see the things they used it on. A lot of education and awareness campaigns on fentanyl, acquired Narcan for distribution, training to school and staff members, and have expanded their work in the jail and in youth justice. So now we're at the point where they have put together another budget. And other things there shows that we're gonna be getting up through 2038, just over $1 million in total opioid funds and how they intend to budget those dollars. And so in the budget proposal, in the package, there's a $100,000 2025 opioid settlement budget, including items for harm reduction, prevention, treatment, recovery, and staffing for those services. So I'll let Julia, add in anything and answer any questions. At the end, we're just looking for a motion to approve the 2025 opioid settlement budget.
Does anybody have any questions for me on how this is set up? What we did for the projection, probably on page 60.
What page
Just
is
kind
that,
of
Julie?
looking through those proposed. So you can kind of see where the funding's coming in over time. We're proposing to spend higher in the first 5 years and then diminish the spending as we go through. So that's kind of how we manage that out, and you can see funding through 2039. But this year, we're just focused on 2025, 100,000 using Exhibit E, and you can see how we've kind of separated out the funding spending.
Mr. Howard.
I just want to make a motion to approve the budget and state that they have done a very fine job.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Helwig, second by Mr. Zawinski to approve as presented. Anybody else have any comments, thoughts, questions? Mr. Alvarado, that continues to increase through what year, please?
Well, the funding, it's a little erratic. It's not consistent year to year, but you're gonna be receiving funds through 2038.
2038.
Yeah, you can see, in we've received some payments up front. Some of these settlements have made advance payments. So as of last year, you had received 316, almost 317,000. And then there's another 26,486 expected this year. And then it's 68,000, 52,000, 77,000, 78. Right there, go up one more. There. So you can see the amount received. What we're receiving this year is less because we received it last year. But it's in that $68,000 to $78,000 range until 2031, and then it starts to go down from there.
Does the funding get here by the beginning of the year so we can use it to spend it, or do we have to spend it and then get it?
Generally, we're spending what we already have in hand.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? So we have a motion and a second on the floor. No other discussion, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, thank you.
And I'll just add quickly, you can see who's the settlements are from that we're accounting for. There's anticipated to be some smaller settlements still forthcoming from, right now you're looking at the distributors and the retailers, and now they're talking to like the middle pieces of the drug chain for settlements as well. So there could be more.
So that takes care of B and I too. Right? Thank you. Number 13, Land, Water, Forestry Resource Committee. Mr. Steve Container.
Thank you, Chairman. On April 9th, the Land, Water, and Forest Resources Committee met. We received an application for the Hungry Bear Gravel bike race, and we approved that. We heard or received written reports from the Register of Deeds office and also from the Land Records and County Surveyors Department. In terms of the Forestry Department, Mr. Davison gave a motorized trails report and updated the committee on grading and brushing progress on those trails. And the Trails Alliance is working with the U.S. Forest Service to gate access to trails that are intended for snow use only. The county forestry report, both written and verbal reports, were provided by Mr. Peterson on the timber sale program. Mr. Peterson had a meeting with the Sealy Trail stakeholders, and a revised trail plan is expected to be back to our committee in May. The forestry department also noted that a recreational trails aids resolution to apply for snowmobile and ATV grants is necessary, and the committee approved a resolution to apply for those grants and pass that on to the county board. Mr. Fisher gave a DNR report, reported on timber sale projects, and also stated that the fire danger is rising across the state. Carbon credits update was provided by Mr. Alvarado, and who explained that the process is going along, and the county is currently on step 9 of 12 steps in that process. And it looks like some revenues may be forthcoming sometime in 2026. It's a 40-year program, and contracts renew every 10 years. And any funds from the projects are unrestricted, so they can be used for anything the county desires. Mr. Kozlowski gave a written zoning and conservation department report, and reported on SCOPE scholarships. That's Sawyer County Outdoor Projects and Education scholarships. Non-metallic mine inspections, dam checks, and a legal review of the Billy Boy water level easement. And the tax deed and foreclosure process, Treasurer Lehner presented a list of properties the county has in tax foreclosure process, and will be working with the committee to set prices for upcoming sales. Administration and management of tax deeded land ordinance. The proposed ordinance was reviewed. Language was changed to reflect 3 years and add county fees. A motion for a resolution to approve the proposed ordinance and fee schedule as written for consideration by the board carried without negative vote. And Mr. Kozlowski also gave a report on staff attendance at the Wisconsin Land, Water, and Conference and Wisconsin Lakes and River Conferences. So I guess we've got a couple of things to go in front of the board here.
Thank you.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Are the timber sales on track for this year?
They seem to be pretty close to on track. Yes.
Thank you.
So letter B is resolution 2025 recreational trail 8. Mr. Everett.
Yes, as Mr. Kariainen indicated, this is a resolution that gets passed every year. It essentially we have to have it on file with the DNR, so as we apply for recreational aids like funding for snowmobile and ATV trails, we've agreed to all this up front as far as the submittal process and assurances to the DNR.
Ms. Hessel.
I just was gonna make a motion to approve the resolution for outdoor recreational aids.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Mrs. Hessel, second by Mr. Marshall Savinsky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Letter C, Administrative Management, Tax Deed Land Ordinance.
Yes, what you have here is an amendment to our code of ordinances for the administration and management of tax deed and lands. So some of you are on the committee or at prior meetings have heard me talk about Act 207 and 216, which were passed by the legislature, adopting new rules for how the tax deed process needs to flow as far as when we can take the properties and then the timeline to sell them. Just the continuation of that is there was a Supreme Court ruling, Tyler versus Hennepin, related to the sale of those properties and the proceeds. Anything above, if we sell a property, we can charge fees and expenses to do that. And then any proceeds that we receive above that need to be returned to the prior owner. So in the state statute, it has the requirement of contacting the prior property owner or attempting to and to return those proceeds. It also has a timeline that we need to sell those properties within 240, or we have to advertise for selling them within 240 days of the county acquiring them. So the ordinance implements all of those statutory changes. In addition, like was mentioned with Mr. Kirianen's report, that the county treasurer and the Land Water and Forest Committee will be working expeditiously as allowed under Wisconsin law to proceed to acquire title to tax delinquent properties, but in no event longer than 3 years from the date of tax certificate issued. And I guess I wanted to highlight that. That's number 2, because prior practice of Surrey County has been to wait 5 years before taking those properties. And it's not good under the new statute. In addition, just from a practical standpoint, properties, especially with those with improvements, would benefit from the county taking them sooner rather than waiting 5 years, so you have a better asset to sell and something that needs less maintenance or security by the county. The treasurer and our maintenance staff will tell you that we recently have a couple of these properties we'll be taking that are hazardous, there are security issues, and if we have taken them a little sooner, it would be a little bit better shape. So, but the resolution attached has the language to adopt the ordinance change or the ordinance update. And in addition, it establishes some fees for this process now. So in there, the administration fee per property, that's a tax certificate. That's the fee we're going to assess to each property as far as the taking of the property to get the tax certificate. It will replace what was referred to prior as the preference to prior owner administrative fee. And then when we go to sell the property, we're going to assess an $1,800 fee. So both those will be added on to any actual costs we have for legal, filing fees, mailing, mowing, upkeep, etc. So when the property is sold, we would take the proceeds to repay ourselves those fees and costs, and then anything above that would be attempted to be returned to the prior property owner.
Wishes of the board.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-04-9.
I'll second it.
Motion by Ms. Wilson, second by Mr. Carrihan to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So overall, all we're doing is going from 5 years down to 3 years. And now, when we sell for a profit, anything that covers all the fees, we have to pay the previous tax or taxpayer.
Right, and I guess the other significant change is once we take the property, we have a timeline now where we have to get it out and sold, or attempt to sell it.
Thank you. Number 14, Health and Human Services Board, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. We met on April 8th, and under LCO, the new building is now open. Urgent care is seeing patients. And everybody's getting acclimated to their new space. The Falcon event was held at LCO, and Falcon is their program that they have for fentanyl awareness, and they had over 200 people in attendance. The Senior Resource Center, the roof bid has been approved, and they are planning more fundraisers for the summer. Behavioral health, they reported that they have 48 clients with intensive cases, and they have received 8 referrals in February. Under children and youth and family services, CPS has 17 out-of-home placements, 6 are LCO and 11 are Sawyer County. And child in care report, there were 56 in long-term care at this time. Under youth justice, we were excited to see that there were no referrals in February. And we have 7 out of 8 home placements filled. On economic support, there was $294,934 for 1,956 recipients. There were 7,043 calls received, and 100% of Badger Care was taken care of as far as, I can't even read my writing. Food share was 99.7% responded to. In public health, there's been a decrease in influenza and a decrease in respiratory hospitalizations. Ms. McAllen shared a presentation of Healthier Together, which you have in your packet tonight, which was a program that was in collaboration with Tamarack Health and identified 3 major areas in our county that need help, and that is drug and alcohol use and affordable housing as the top concerns for Sawyer County. Under physical, everything is looking pretty good with our budget, and we're keeping an eye on transportation costs for secure detention. That's it.
Thank you. Letter B,
What does
resolution
that
for amendment
say?
Sawyer County Health and Human Services 2025 fee schedule. I don't know, you want that, or do you want Julie to have that?
I'll let Julia handle that one.
We have a resolution to amend the fee schedule. We had done some cost analysis in some of our reproductive health areas per our state statute. And from that, we found some areas that we need to change some pricing in. In addition, I've also taken this opportunity, being that this was coming forward, to change the language in there to more plain language so that people can understand what the fees are actually for. Some things were taken directly from medical jargon that did not make much sense. So we tried to make it so it's a little bit easier for people to understand. Not a whole lot of changes. And the other thing that we identified is that we did not have transitions, our CVRF, in our fee schedule, so we've added that, and our daily rate has just been reviewed, and that's $180.
Thank you, Mr. Buckles.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the resolution to amend the Sawyer County Health and Human Services fee schedule.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Buckles, second by Mr. Evans to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Community health needs assessment.
The community health needs assessment and the CHIP, the community health improvement plan, are in there for your reference. That was given, they are final, and you'll be seeing those come out in some into the public to refer to them. But we just want to share it with the board from the Human Services Committee.
Thank you. Number 15, Finance Committee Chair Report, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met on April 10th. Our treasurer, Mr. Lehner, provided a written report on he attended the WCCO conference. Talked about tax bill write-offs, in-rem foreclosures, lottery and gaming credit settlements, delinquent tax mailings, and a 6-year chart of delinquent parcels, showing a reduction of about 3,000 parcels in the first quarter of 2025. Mr. Markern gave us a finance report, reviewed the monthly tax reports, revenues for March, budget performances for 24 and 25, and March CIP purchases. A resolution to assign general fund balance was approved. We went through the 26 budget timeline, and Mr. Markern provided a timeline for that on the 26 budget. Mr. Markern also provided an ambulance report, reviewed the aging ambulance reports and collections. Medicaid and Medicare represent the bulk of the revenues collected. Ambulance budget performance for 25 was presented. The EMSMC monthly report was reviewed. Mr. Markern also reviewed the 24 and 25 highway budget performance reports. Also, there was investments review and updates. Interest rates are down 1% from last year. The Frandon Bank $3 million CD will mature in May and can be reinvested. We also discussed the financing public safety radio system. The fall of the 2024 GenCom proposal stayed relatively the same, with a proposed budget and a contingency of $2.8 million. The plan includes a new tower in Draper and the use of the Flambeau Tower to provide coverage in the southeast corner of the county. The project will be funded by debt service levy. Mr. Markern provided a document for the different loan options. A resolution approving the budget and financing for public safety radio system improvements was approved to be forwarded to the county board. And that ends my report.
Thank you, Mr. Rickheimer. Letter B, resolution to assign general fund balance. Mr. Alvarado.
We have a resolution to assign the general fund balance. We went to self-insuring the dental program last year, or the dental insurance for the employees. It's a voluntary insurance that employees can enroll in. And so rather than paying an intermediary to administer it, we insured it, essentially administered ourselves. And there was a balance of, amount overpaid by employees for the amount of insurance coverage. So the resolution is to assign that amount to the dental assigned fund balance. So it's there in future years if there's underpayments.
Yes. Mr. Rickheimer.
Oh. The motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Rickheimer, second by Marshall Savinsky to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Letter C, finance public safety radio system.
In February, you passed a resolution to proceed with the public safety radio improvements. And at that time, there was an estimated cost of $2.825 million. There were still some unknowns with the design of the system. And so the resolution required that we come back to the board, present you with the final budget and project to move ahead with, and that's what this effectively is. Gary Pelletier is on Zoom for the meeting. Like Mr. Buckhold said, the proposed network is pretty similar to what we've seen in the past. It does have new towers in the southern portion of the county in the Wooddale, Meteor area and Meadowbrook, and then also the WOJB tower. Those would all be leased spaces. The additional tower site on the east side in the Draper area would be a new tower build. There's not an existing tower there. The budget is relatively the same. We're sticking with the $2.825 million. That includes contingency above the quoted cost. Technology is the same. And it does include the additional radio tower at the Flambeau Correctional Facility, which also would be an existing tower use. I'll just ask, Gary, is there anything else you want to highlight in the proposal?
No, I think you have everything there. There's obviously still coordination of leases that have to be done, part of the project, but like you said before, we can finish a lot of the stuff except for the Draper Tower will take at least a year. It'd be next summer before that one can be built.
Right, now this echo what he said there. Yeah, the design is as final as it's going to be. Now it's a matter of implementing it. So it's still a matter of working out the lease tower. We know the lease tower companies and locations. It's still inking agreements for that as well. WOJB, the LCO Tribal Governing Board has okayed it, but we still have to work out a final agreement there. And then the other part of the resolution is just committing to it's not only committing to the project, it's committing to the budget, and then also that the project will be financed with a future debt issue. That could happen within a couple months, or it might be best for the county to wait until later in the year. You have the flexibility to do that. Mr. Markin, the finance director, is on top of that. If you wanna come explain, he did project out the debt service impacts, so you're aware of those. So the resolution commits you to a debt issue, which we're recommending is the best way to do it. Debt issue could take different forms though, as far as a loan or bond or tied into your CIP financing for next year. But I'll let Mike explain that.
So I handed out a couple scenarios of financing this. Both are over a 10-year period of a bond issue, note issue. The first one is pretty much just a straight line. Principal increases a little bit each year as our valuation for the county increases. I have put a 2% growth factor in the valuation, so that's reflective in the TID out value. The bottom line here is about 5 cents per thousand, so on a $300,000 home would be about $15 a year in taxes that would be. The second scenario takes into consideration that our 23 debt issue for the final portion of the second courthouse being built, the remodel, 23 and 24 CIPs, and that property that we purchased, all those are rolled into a debt issue. That will mature in 2033, so we could have the option of having kind of an 8-year straight line, then have the back two payments higher to keep the overall mill rate the same. That comes out to about 4 cents then first 8 years, and then jumping up to 8 or 9 cents per thousand in those last 2 years. Knowing the uncertainty of future debt issues, I would probably recommend the first option when we get to that point. As Andy said, we can do this soon, we can do it later, whenever we want to get the project rolling.
Actually, we want to get the project rolling, just that you're committing to financing it with debt at some point based on, the market obviously is changing. Municipal bond rates could come down later in the year, depending on people getting in and out of the stock market. But we want to, when the project's rolling already, and we want to keep it rolling and let them order their equipment, because just for the unknowns there as well, the sooner is probably the better to get as much of the hardware ordered and purchased.
Mr. Buckles.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the financing of the public safety radio system.
Mr. Hellwig.
Oh, I second it.
A motion by Mr. Buckles, second by Mr. Hellwig. Discussion.
And discussion is, so are we showing for overruns? Because the total project is less than what this was just what we approved, correct? And then the total project is less, so it actually will be less.
Builds in a little contingency.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
do we need to put in that we're going to approve one of the options in the motion?
No, you're approving the project proceeding based on the attachment is the proposal from GenCom for the layout and everything. And then you're approving that, the budget basically, and then that you're gonna finance it. Sometime later in the year, you're going to have to actually approve the financing, either a debt issue or like a bond issue or a loan or something along those lines.
That's when we'll approve one of the options.
One of the financing options, yes.
Thank you.
So we have a motion by Mr. Buckles, second by Mr. Hellwig to approve. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 16, Economic Development, UW Extension Committee, Mr. Bighammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met on April 7th. The University of Wisconsin Extension Report, Ms. Bellatrus gave updates on a vacancy with the program. Also talked about the Youth in Government program that we'll continue to discuss and looks to be forthcoming, and the county strategic plan timeline. Ms. Simmons gave us a Hayward Lakes and Visitors Convention Bureau report. She attended the Wisconsin Governor's Conference in Tourism and stated that Sawyer County is ahead of the game with our focus on outdoor recreation. Speakers included Duluth Trading Company, St. Croix Rods, and Mercury Marine. Ben Pop of the Berkey was also there to present an award. Contract for services, the HLVCB contract for services reviewed and approved. The Northwest Regional Planning Commission report, Sheldon Johnson from Northwest Regional Planning discussed the state's intent to seek the CDBG RLF funds back from the local entities to relocate to repurposing vacant spaces. Sawyer County has $16,000 in its fund used for rehab of housing for low-income applicants. The WRPC is advocating to retain those funds locally versus going back to the state. The county board may prepare a resolution to request that its funds be kept at the local account. Concern there is that it would go back to the state and not come back into the Northwest region for its purpose. The Economic Development Corporation report was presented by Mr. Lamoro. He presented a list of the SCLCO sponsorships with 10 new sponsors. He updated the committee on the Why Sawyer video being prepared to recruit employees to Sawyer County. The Holmes report was sent to the committee. A list of services offered by the SSBIC was discussed. On May 9th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., the NWRPC is will be conducting a small business workshop. The library updates, Winter Library. Donna Nucky presented updates on programming, fundraising, and circulation. Winter Library will be working on a strategic plan with A. Gregorian for the next 3 months. The Sherman Weiss Library, Ann Larson presented a programming, fundraising, and circulation statistics. Federal IMLS cuts will impact services and programs, and Ms. Elkrick confirmed the information from the Northern Waters Library Program. Committee Library Planning Committees. The committee met and made revisions to the proposed county library plan. The library plan, the updated library plan was presented to the committee. Resolution to approve the library plan and pass on to the county board for consideration. So that'll be passed on. Trail reports, Ms. LaRue gave the motorized and stated that revenues are down and trail pass rates may be increased. And then Mr. Duffy gave a non-motorized report and shared a letter from Ben Pop, the director of the Berkey. From board appointed committee updates, Mr. Karianen reported that CEP and ICAA have upcoming meetings, and the federal cuts have not impacted those programs thus far. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Guyver. We have letter B, the Sawyer County Library Plan, and letter C, the resolution for adopting the library plan. Mr. Alvarado.
Yes, as Mr. Guyver just mentioned, and as you recall, we appointed a county library planning committee a month or two ago. The library directors had brought to the committee the library plan earlier in the year. There were some questions as to whether it had gone through a public hearing and who put the plan together. Realized that we did not have a standing county library planning committee, so we went ahead and designated one, appointed the members. They reviewed the plan, they held the public hearing, they revised the plan after the public hearing, and have now sent it to you for adoption by the county. So in the packet is the updated library service plan 2025 through 2030. It's something we have to have on file in order for our county libraries to be participants in the library system, in our case, the Northern Waters Library System, and take advantage of those services. And so it's here for by adopting the resolution, you're adopting the plan as it is attached.
I move we approve the plan.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Duffy, second by Ms. Wilson to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 17, County Administrators Report.
Right. Just update on personnel. Ambulance, we're still shuffling some people there. We're almost full staffed. Things seem to be going well. We're still looking for a real property lister. We've had some conversations on changing our approach. That is obviously a position that is not, there's just not a lot of people that probably set out in their career to be real property listers. So we're looking at certain skills that are out there and hoping that maybe this spring during the commencement at universities, maybe somebody will be interested in that position coming out of school. We've hired a administrative assistant in zoning and conservation. Interviews were this last couple days for deputy clerk of court. We have 2 openings there. We hired a driver operator at the highway department, and interviews are also happening for the adult protective service specialist. The only other position is a mental health therapist I don't have listed, but that is open as well, but we may have a candidate to interview for that position. So all in all, things have been really good here, probably the last 6 months or more, as far as keeping fully staffed and having good candidates to interview and offer positions to. Corp Council, we just acted on the Administration and Management of Tax Deed Lands Ordinance that was developed. I mentioned the I didn't mention it, but the class action lawsuit has is a direct outcome of the Tyler versus Hennepin case and the changes in tax deed lands, whereas now all the counties, not only in Wisconsin, but other states are being sued by attorneys looking to recover any proceeds prior to the court case that property owners may be entitled to. We did nearly have fulfilled our request to the GOAT committee. That's in the Wisconsin Assembly. They asked us for any DEI related information. That request has changed over time, but just so you're aware, that's diversity, equity, inclusion, and as well as belonging. And we've gone through positions, policies, training, where our funds are being spent, and did not find anything that we needed to respond with. There are potentially some grant funds that have come in that we're still going through, or we found a couple that have those words in it, and we'll be forwarding those on as part of that public. Essentially, it's turned into a public records request, so we're forwarding that on. There have been some inquiries regarding the Lake District, as well as the Callahan Mud Lake Dam itself that we've had to respond to from open record standpoint. Staff have been working on implementation of Act 235, which is the judge shielding law, where we have to make sure we can make confidential or shield any, by request, any personal identifying information of any judges. So we think we've got a process in place through our departments for that. There has been ongoing, we haven't talked about it a lot because it's been sitting with the DNR for quite a while, but some issues with lake elevations relating to the Billy Boy Dam. So we have a request from the DNR we're working on a response to, and there's been a number of zoning matters that have required Corp Council assistance. Airport contracts for the runway construction are signed. We've held the pre-construction meeting, and that project's gonna start on May 5th. Looking at a runway closure through May and into probably mid-June. Really hoping to have that as short a timeline as possible. And then airport manager has been communicating with tenants to coordinate that, as some of those tenants or hangar owners are gonna be relocating their planes off the field somewhere else for that time. I think storm removal equipment we've covered. We're still waiting for the contract on that, but the bid has been approved. Just waiting for the state to issue the contract. Master plan, probably that'll be pushed off a little further. The consultants are waiting for the FAA to respond to the projections that they're using. We need FAA approval to sign off on the projections on the aircraft and operations that they anticipate at the airport before that can move forward. So probably now looking to third or fourth quarter before we'll see anything back from the consultant on that. Ambulance, just ongoing, developing options for flexible responses. We're reviewing the operations. We're providing information to the towns that are have hired the consultants with the grant funding to review EMS operations. Billing has improved with the new company, so that's positive. There is the potential for changes in state law, which could provide new opportunities for ambulance services, especially municipal ones. As you know, or some of you know, we've received from requests to let the towns out of the ambulance service, which is not really a doable idea. We can't, they're free to contract or use whoever they want, but our ambulance service is a county service that is part of our county levy, just like every other, like the sheriff's department and like zoning and the court operations. So we can't just say this town doesn't have to pay for it, which is what they're asking for. But we've had requests from other towns to expand the number of staffed bases away from going to a third or fourth site, and then improving service. So there's a lot of requests there. The changes in state law, there was a bill introduced, I think today, to this effect that would allow right now, counties can go outside the levy limits for EMS services, and the legislation introduced today would allow towns to do the same, towns and municipalities, cities and villages for regional EMS services. So there might be future opportunities for the county. It's really a result, though, of the same problems everybody's facing with lack of staffing to respond to these calls. You know, the county went to full-time staffing, which alleviates some of that, but it's not without a cost. And at some point you're going to be faced with the question of whether you're already faced with it. But as towns want more service, it's more people, it's more ambulances, it's an expense with no more revenue to support it. So it's going to be a tough decision, but I can tell you, I think we don't get any complaints about the people on the ambulance or the care people are receiving. So I think that's a positive to build off of. Nothing new on broadband. Everybody's waiting for the BEAD awards and to see where those dollars end up going. Like I mentioned with the public safety network, TGB did give preliminary okay for the radio equipment to go on the radio tower, WJB tower. Still need to put the final details together. And I understand they're talking about the CJCC MOU, but we don't have anything back from them on that at this time. Criminal Justice Collaborating Council, we've discussed the MOU there. We'd like to re-up it. Just waiting for that response. You've just heard the opioid funds request. There's, like I've mentioned in the past, there's a considerable amount of activity going on within the CJCC overseeing the Justice Point diversion and pretrial work, and as well as hybrid, the recovery court. And then beyond that, now we have law enforcement involved in deflection, and we're talking about medical assisted treatment in the jail. So just, and youth justice is in a considerable amount of time. Now we're tackling truancy. So there is a discussion at the last meeting on how to break things down into some committees and looking at how committees will be formed and approved in the future, as well as emablishing an executive committee. So I think it's all a positive sign that there's some good things happening, some successful things. It's just a matter of managing that. Case, just as a little bit of, I don't say trivia, but how our organization works is CJCC, or our justice programs, are actually part of the administration office. That was before I got here. The administration contracted with Justice Point. And I think it took a little bit of work to do that. Administration is kind of viewed as neutral. We're not part of the court system or part of law enforcement. But really, over the last couple of years, it doesn't take a lot of work in my office to keep track of Justice Point, because we're getting so much buy-in now from our CJCC meetings. The judges are showing up, law enforcement's there, HHS is there, we have county board members there. So I think that's a sign of good things, that everybody wants to be at the table and be a part of what's going on. The contracts for service, you heard a little bit of that in the economic development report. That's kind of my move to put all of our outside entities that we provide funding for during the budget under a contract, so that we're not just giving the money. We're putting something in that says, we're providing you these funds, you're providing the service, and here's the details. So we have an agreement with Hayward Lakes now and outline their duties for the funds. We have agreements out with the EDC, the Fair, and Senior Resource to do the same. As you go into the budget process really won't change, and your discretion on funding these organizations doesn't change. It just means that instead of saying here's $25,000, we're outlining what we expect in return for those dollars, and it gives you some flexibility going ahead to add, subtract dollars and duties or assess their performance. I think all positives. It makes it a little more cleaner and transparent as you move ahead. Facilities, all of our in-house projects are completed. Big things right now we've been working on are just rolling the signage out through the rest of the building that's consistent with this side. So that order is gone in, and hopefully within, takes a little while for them to build that signage, so it'll be a little while before you see it up, but you'll see good signage to the rest of the building. You've seen the monitors throughout the building at the entrances. We're getting those programmed to put better signage in for the public. That was one thing the employees had asked for and the board had talked about back when this building was being built, is to make sure people coming in know where they're going. So that's getting done. I'm really proud that thing's on the wall. That was kind of the final piece for this building, was to get the state seals so that you're getting the picture you saw when you approved the project, which had the state seal on the wall. And I haven't seen if they're up in the courtroom yet, but we've got one for each of the courtrooms as well. Carbon credits, like the update in the committee report, we're seeing some positive movement there. We're at step 9, which is the third-party reviewer is reviewing the credits and has to sign off on them. Then we go to step 10, which is they go to the American Carbon Registry, which is effectively what I'll call you is the stock exchange for carbon credits, where they're registered and they track the sales and the availability of the credits and the sales. So once that's done, then ANU will ramp up their marketing of the credits. They already have the credits out there as going to be available. They're saying that maybe third or fourth quarter, they'll be able to start making some sales. I wouldn't anticipate you see any money until next year. Like I've mentioned in the past, Bayfield and Iron, who are ahead of a lot of the counties in the process, they've sold credits. They've sold credits above and beyond the administrative costs that it took to get the sales approved. So I don't know if they've had any more, but there's a market out there for them. We've also talked at the Public Works Committee about the cell phone tower leases on county property. We do have a tower on the Highway Shop property in Radisson, and then also one on Tower Hill. So those are long-term leases, but have been asked to consider extending those leases out a little further. Economic development, and this relates to some of the presentation that Dale made. And I've shared some of this with the committee. There's been an ongoing conversation with the EDC on potential role for the county in economic development efforts beyond just providing their organizational support. So specifically housing and business assistance or their incubation. They'd like to go in the direction of having an incubator to help start new businesses in the county. So I expect and I hope you'll see something from that in the future. There's been active discussions with developers for that process or for that opportunity. Let's see, county budget, already starting to talk about that. Mr. Markran's prepared a timeline already for the 26 budget. We've had an initial meeting with the union and we had our strategic planning session with our benefits consultant on health insurance. That's one of the things that the county's really benefited from the last couple of years as far as the budget is that our health insurance costs have been largely under control. Flat rates or even a small decrease. So if you can keep that going, that will really help with the budget. But some of that's obviously out of everyone's control, but it's good to not have to plan for a 10 or 20% increase in premiums. Reminder that the Joint Finance Committee meeting is Monday, April 28th from 10 to 5 at the Hayward High School. If you've never been to one or I've encouraged, it's a good opportunity to go see how that works and hear the requests that they hear. I would encourage our department heads to take time to go and give to use the 2 or 3 minutes you're given to talk about the importance of the state funds and their programs. Strategic planning, like has been mentioned, I talked to the admin committee about pushing that back with extensions, so they're aware of that until you have a county administrator in place who can be a part of that. And then the county administrator transition, the recruiting agency is out taking applications. It closes April 28th. I've been preparing as much as I can for communications to help with that turnover. I asked the department heads to prepare a turnover file or information for the departments. Then I'm augmenting those with my own comments so that the next administrator has some basis to understand what's going on within the county and within the departments. Trying to think if I caught it all. The admin committee is asked to do an exit interview with me. It's Thursday. It's 11 o'clock. Obviously, any county board member can attend a committee meeting, so if you want to be a part of that exit interview and ask me anything, feel free to attend. So outside of that, I just want to thank everybody. It's been a great 3 years. I think I'm hopeful that you'll find somebody better than me. I think this is a good place to work. I mean, that's sincerely my hope. I think I can tell you places in the state that are kind of known places that administrators probably don't want to go work. I think this is a place that, you know, you've had good experiences. I've had a good experience. I think Tom Hoff would say the same, so we're obviously telling people that. So I'm sure I'll see everybody around at some point at meetings and conferences. So again, thanks for your support. I think we've had great boards to work with. I did want to share when I interviewed here, part of that process was having some of the employees, the department heads, interview, ask questions. And I distinctly remember the one group I had Paul Grahovic, Gary Gethart, Dan Ploger, Tim Hagberg, and they sat, before we started the interview, they were all sitting across from me laughing, sharing their retirement dates of when they were all gonna be out of here. And I thought, wow, that's Human Services and the Highway Department, and the sheriff gave me a tour and he was running for reelection, and I was like, boy, that's daunting to have, but I think that's one of the things that maybe most proud of is I think we've managed those transitions. We got good people in to run those departments. So I think you have a good group of department heads that are doing a good job of doing the work of the county. So I hope that continues on. That's all.
Thank you. Letter A, adopting a policy for county administrator and department heads, succeeders policy. So our administrator that's going to the next county told me that they have a policy all set up for this intern while you're waiting for your new administrator to come in. And he was nice enough to revise it for us. So that's what's in front of you now is, so there's a policy of the steps to take when we have to go from administrator to administrator, basically. So.
Yeah, and it has, I mean, it could be a medical leave, it could be a long-term, short-term, it's got flexibility in there, and as well as, I think it outlines for department heads the same thing, and it's, I think informally, that's what happens when a department head is gonna be taking an absence or we're transitioning. It just puts it into writing that we should already be having transition thoughts within the departments of who is in charge if somebody, you know, simple as somebody taking a week-long trip out of country, who's responsible in that department when they're gone. So it lays all that out into some good detail.
I'll make a motion that we approve that policy, the succession policy.
Mr. Buckles.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Riggenheimer, second by Mr. Buckles to approve the policy. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 19, appoint intern county administrator, discussion and possible action. So I have moved forward and asked Mr. Mike Markren, our finance director, and Ms. Rose Lilyroot, our human services person, to split the duties and receive the sum pay of $50 an hour when they're doing administrative work. And they both accepted that. So that would be until we get the new administrator on board, so that things don't fall through the cracks. Also, I asked to have a meeting with them once a week to make sure we didn't miss things going forward. Mr. Buckles.
I make a motion to approve or appoint the interim county administrators, Rose Lilyroot and Mike Markren.
And I'll second the motion.
At the rate of $50 per hour when they're doing administrative work. Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Buckles, second by Mr. Duffy. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, yes?
Yes, and I just to say you're gonna be in good hands for that time period. When I started here, before I even started, I had to come up and do interviews for a finance director. There are not a lot of them out there, and I'm very happy that we got Mike. Pulled him out of the school world, but he's adapted really well, and he'll be good in your interim role, and same with Rose. I think she was the first employee I talked to. She's my lifeline before I started here, and has kept me in line since I've been here as well. So just want to thank them for their work as well.
Thank you. Number 20, correspondence, reports, conference, and meetings. Anybody have anything they want to share? No? Number 21, board appointment updates. We will have, as Mr. Eberl said, that they're taking applications till the 28th of April, and tentatively we'll be interviewing on the 20th of May. So on the 19th of May, the candidates will come in and meet the department heads and board members example, we don't have the set time yet, be like in the evening, 4 o'clock. And then the next day on the 20th, the administrative committee will be interviewing them. Providing we have a candidate at that time, we'll probably have a special board meeting because we want to lock that person in as soon as possible. We don't want to wait a month before we get them because they might find another job by then. And then approximately, they'd have to give a 30-day notice. So we're talking ballpark end of July, roughly. Okay, board appointment committee updates.
Mr. Righeimer touched on SEP and Indian Head Community Action Agency, mentioned that so far, at least, they haven't been impacted by federal funding. However, late this afternoon, I just received the agenda for tomorrow's SEP meeting in Ashland, and it sounds like there's some concern about federal funding for SEP going forward. So just thought I'd share that.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? It's brought to my attention that sometimes we're all human, we all have lives ourselves, and you might have to miss a meeting. If you're gonna miss a meeting, please contact the chair of that committee or the administrator or Liz or I, so that we know what you're gonna miss, because the reason we do that is we wanna make sure that we still have a quorum going into the meeting. If for some reason we don't have a quorum going into the meeting, we can make arrangements so we can have a quorum. So if you're gonna miss, please let somebody know so there is a quorum for the meetings. Anybody have anything else? Thank you all for your valuable time. Please stay and have a piece of cake, and thank Mr. Alvarado. Meeting adjourned.